Hi, all. Hope you're well. Cullen here, and welcome to Law Live. My next guest has had over 35 years in sales, hails from the UK, and is currently heading up professional services BD. And he's helped over 150 firms, partners, barristers increase their revenue by 6 to 7 figures. And he's coming to you and going to be talking about how you or your firm can become rainmakers and also not only attract great clients, but attract great staff, or staff, as he'd say, because he is from the UK. Please make welcome Mr. Alistair Marshall, who is very snappily dressed. How are you, Alistair? And thank you for joining
very well,
Law Live.
Always aware that I need to be a snappy dresser when I'm next to you, Cullen. Yeah.
My goodness, I don't hold a candle to you, Alistair, but the question on everyone's minds, and I will before I get into that, guys, it is a Law Live and it is 1:30 on the 12th. So please put your questions in for Alistair and we'd be welcome to them. But what is happening in your world, Alistair?
Well, it's a mixed bag out there. I would say two-thirds of firms and lawyers are doing very well. And I would say a third of them are doing less well, bordering on struggling, because the other two-thirds are pinching all their work and clients. So you will not find it surprising when I suggest that one of the reasons for that are the two-thirds of firms or people who are doing quite well tend to be more active in going out and trying to win work, whereas the third who are doing less well may be those who are more passive and wait for the phone to ring, which is probably not the way I'd go in 2022.
No. And just so everyone knows, you are a BD master. And the way we originally connected was you connected with me on LinkedIn and asked simply, let's grab a coffee. And to this day, 2 years ago, we're still very good friends, colleagues, and it's just opened a realm of possibilities from that one interaction, which, to your point, it's I guess the smarter you work up here, the luckier you get down here, but no one actually focuses on all that BD work at the top end.
Sure, but the reach out came because I had an ideal, or I knew or had an ideal client in my mind, and you played in the same world. So in some ways, we were non-competing people looking for similar clients in similar places. So we were swimming in the same pond, but we weren't sharking after each other. And that's, one of the messages that when it comes to being Rainmaker, always immerse yourself in the perfect client's world. So if you don't have a perfect client, it's very difficult to do that.
No, absolutely. And we've already got Mina joining in saying hello. Mina's a regular. He's a leading solicitor and he's a fantastic man. So thank you, Mina, for joining. Please put your questions in, everyone. Anyone watching, there's a few joining in, barristers, lawyers, etc. there, Alistair. Tell us what you do in a nutshell, basically.
Well, the first thing I should say is many people push back to me and go, Alistair, why should I bother? Because I only get measured on billable hours. So anything I do outside that, I get no recognition for. And I guess if you work for yourself, you'll understand the difference. But there are more people out there. There are more firms setting up every year. So, and the benchmark is being raised. So people are being more savvy in the area of BD. And therefore there is a requirement. So there used to be a time that BD didn't go beyond organizing a fairly basic event. But now we have a lot more platforms and there's a lot more sophistication to it than there ever was before. Now,
correct.
The other thing I should say is that COVID took away a lawyer or barrister's ability to have random acts of coffee and lunch, which had built practices for over 100 years. And people were sat remotely at home ringing me up going, Alistair, what can we do while we're sat here? Now, please let me share a document which is sat next to me. This is the original piece of paper I wrote in March 2020. Where I wrote down the 20-odd routes to market that I use to generate interest in what I do. And then I took the highlighter pen to it and said, what could I still do while I was working remotely? And guess what? I could do all but 3. So those lawyers who took a backseat during COVID and said, oh, well, I've got an excuse here, I don't need to do too much. You actually missed out on 2 years of opportunity. And now we're all coming back together again, and there's more events and networking opportunities. And they're getting back into it. Some of those people never missed the opportunity for the last 2 years. They're probably the people who are currently smashing it out of the park.
Absolutely. And I want to remove that stigma of the word sales. Zig Ziglar, who you and I both love, once said in his Southern accent, he passed away now, God bless him, but he said, everyone is in sales. Even if you don't have the sales person title. If you work with people, you are in sales. So I think lawyers don't want to use that word, but they are in sales, right? Surely.
I have huge empathy with all lawyers and barristers because no one teaches you this at law school. Okay, so they move the goalposts. You go into private practice, then all of a sudden someone comes along and says, oh, you need to show the ability to onboard new revenue streams. And people go, oh, that's unfair. I just came to join the law and help people out. And what's going on with this 1,250 hours a year I've got to bill and all this kind of thing. So I have huge empathy. You can read this in a book. You know, there are things that can help you, but you need to get on top of some of the basics and fairly quick. And there are people and places around where you can pick a number of these topics up. But if you're a lawyer out there and you really enjoy the technical aspect in delivering the work, that's all good. But I'm here to deliver you the message that if you want more than just a job and you want a career or you want to progress through your firm or own your own firm, then you need to learn how to onboard new client work and not just more work, but better quality work. Because as people demand more from their lawyers and law firms, you need to be perceived as an expert because experts don't charge low fees. That makes you more profitable. And it's kind of a continuing place where you'd have less hours on the tools and you can spend more time on the practice. And it's it just gets better and better when you work in that system. But you do have to start somewhere. So people might say, Alistair, how many hours a week do I need to commit to grow a practice? And I'll say probably a minimum of 2. If you give me more, that's great, but you need a minimum of 2 hours. And then people say, well, what should I do in those 2 hours? And I'll say, well, in the first hour, you might write something or do an article piece or a video or something like not dissimilar to what we're doing now. And then the second hour, you need to get out from behind your desk and build some relationships, because that's all that marketing and BD is. I don't want to complicate it. It's client service multiplied by building relationships with people who might be interested in what you do. And it's no more than that. And you shouldn't fear it.
No,
it's not too salesy.
No. Well, going back to that point of obviously billable hours is important. And I know a lot of leading lawyers watching this will know that their partner or their boss is going to be going, well, why isn't John or Sally behind their desk doing the billable hours? How do they balance that of, there's no billable work happening, but it's that relationship piece? How should lawyers approach that, I guess, negative impact to their billable work while they're doing the things that will eventually lead to work?
Well, I think you need to demonstrate you being efficient in the hours that you take to do this stuff. So in a larger firm, you're sometimes required to go and tick a box back in your CRM system. So you have to go back to Salesforce and tick that you've had a meeting with someone. So you may as well be meeting with people who are relevant and could do something for you. So, the meetings I try and suggest to people fall into 3 areas. So you might have meetings with existing clients or people who work in existing clients. That's where you get referrals, testimonials, case studies, all those kind of things from. The second group is prospects who match that ideal client. So for mine and your sake, we want lawyers and law firms. If it's a lawyer who's listening, let's say it's a medical practice person. We want to be the go-to lawyer in Australia for medical practitioners. That's fine. You would meet with medical practitioners. And the third group would be referral partners or people who I describe as, in the immediate world of a client, an ecosystem. So I spend my life in a referral world with people who also want legal firms and legal people as clients, but we don't compete. So I have regular lunches with the head of professional services in banks, in insurance brokers, in accountancy practices. I might talk to people about the digital footprint and online, but I don't write code, I don't build websites. So I have people who I can recommend who do that far better than I do. I'm a decent copywriter, but I'm not a professional one. So I have copywriters in the network. Most firms that I see, believe it or not, have HR challenges. I'm not an HR guy, but I have a whole ecosystem. So all the problems that a law firm describes, there's probably someone in my network who I can help, who can add value. So again, if you think if I was a lawyer and I wanted to become the go-to lawyer for dentists within the eastern seaboard of Australia, then you would have to think about who else knows all those people, and you don't compete. Now, bizarrely, 15 years ago, when I decided lawyers were going to be my world, I read 3 books on how you ran a law firm, and I learned the most boring things about WIP It's not that I woke up one day and needed to really understand WIP, but I couldn't speak credibly with people in a legal practice unless I understood the mechanics of how things work. And so, again, if you were into medical practitioners or dentists, you would understand that X-ray machines are the biggest financial outlay that any dentist makes after premises. So if you got close to the people who supply X-ray machines to the dentists of New South Wales, they could open every door to every dental practice you'd like to do work for. If you want to do agriculture, and again, I'm making this up to make the point, if you knew the John Deere tractor salesman, he could probably introduce you to every farmer in the west of the state. So, and you don't compete. So it's about understanding who can influence and open doors for you. You know, some of the bankers that I meet bank 500 law firms. Well, I couldn't dream to work with 500 law firms. You couldn't do it. So they already know all the relationships. You just need to be able to work with these people and build relationships and help them understand why you're valuable to their clients they already enjoy.
I'm endeared by what you're saying is like actually think back and actually see along the line who has the most influence and, you know, build a relationship with that person and make sure it doesn't compete, because obviously people don't want to impede on other people's, I guess, turf, if you want to call it that. But there's some good examples. Now, that's from the client point of view. Let's talk about the big issue faced in a lot of law firms right now is staff, retention, and how to engage your force. Like you talked about, you know, attracting quality staff. How does a firm do that and keep them?
Well, there's 2 or 3 things here. So let's peel back the onion. I guess it starts with staff satisfaction. So if people don't leave, you don't need to recruit new ones. So I'm a big believer that as well as measuring client satisfaction, firms should measure staff satisfaction, and it should be a formal survey that's done every 2 years. One of the things that most staff that I speak to are nervous around is this, how you build your practice. And because there's always a pressure of having a billable hours target, you know, everyone's on the mouse wheel trying to knock it out of the park every week. If you can assist people and say, we will show you all the skill sets that we expect of you, and we'll help you on your pathway to partnership by you know, showing you the ropes and how you would actually build this practice. It's a team game. We'll do that. People are less likely to leave if they feel like they're left on their own to do that. Secondly, when it comes to interviewing people, if you can demonstrate that you have that, and this is part of your induction program, is that we'll take you through this, that's a huge benefit versus other firms who don't do it. And also in an interview situation, over the last 18 months, the power's changed. It used to be the interviewer had all the power and the job to offer. Now the interviewee has got as much power because they're the ones choosing which firms to go to in a talent shortage.
Correct.
So if you need to sell people the dream, why should I come to your firm rather than go to another one? Well, look, here's our strategic plan. This is where we plan on taking this business. We'd love you to join the bus on a journey because this is where we're going. But again, you can only share that dream if you've taken the time to actually work out what it is. The other thing that's very appealing to people is the type of work they're going to do and the types of clients they're going to do it for. And I've gone to work in firms who, you know, even boutique firms who've had stellar client bases. But if I looked at the website, you'd have no idea of the type of work and who they do it for because they're so blinkered in sharing that types of information. And that's why
they also look the same. Every law firm website usually says we do these are our clients. We want great outcomes. It's like, but what do you actually do? Yeah. And most firms have the same thing. It's like you wouldn't, if you didn't know the brand, you wouldn't know who it was.
Well, the question I throw out to people: we live in an era of what I call DEB. So who is DEB? DEB is the digitally empowered buyer who does all the research before she makes a decision. So, you know, clients would not go and spend anything over $500 without Googling it first. So you have to consider what your own digital footprint looks like. But if you're a firm looking to control attract staff, people do the same. They're not coming for an interview without Googling your website first. So what's on there that's going to make them think this is the right firm for me? There's going to be good work. There's going to be good colleagues. There's a path to partnership here. I'm going to get training. People are going to invest in my time. All those kind of things. There's more to beanbags in the breakout room when you're trying to build culture.
No, I love that. And culture eats strategy for breakfast. And I love what you're saying there. And in terms of testimonials, never have they been more important. Google's a great platform. Someone once said to me very, very prophetically when we started our business 4 years ago, you will never get a lawyer to leave a Google review. We have 303 as of today. We had 3 just come in last night. What would you say to firms in terms of how important Google reviews are to their credibility?
I think it's huge in a modern world, particularly to our younger brothers and sisters. Okay, so we still have some more elderly people who are still in charge of running law firms.
OAPs.
I have to be
Yes.
careful what I say as I approach 56. But it's not lost on me how many law firms that I Google and they don't have a single review.
No.
So people don't
Oh my
understand,
goodness.
first of all, what a negative effect that has on their search engine optimization within the Google platform. And don't get me started on where the value is in a digital agency, because there's so many snake oil perpetrators who should be working with their law firms and making them do this. However, I have this to say, and this is bordering on controversial, Cullen, so I have to be careful.
Say it. Say it. Everyone is watching and peeled to what controversial thing you're going to say next.
Okay, so in Australia, I would say less than 10% of lawyers ask clients for feedback. And that is the best time to ask for a referral, right? So most people, when I say, how have you built your practice to date? They go, Alistair, word of mouth referral. That's how we get them. And I go, fantastic. We're in the start of October. How many clients have you asked this financial year since the 1st of July? And it all goes quiet, right? So people are waiting for people to give a referral rather than asking for it because they're a little bit frightened or they've never been taught on how to ask for it without sounding desperate or salesy or cheesy or needy or all of these things. So that's the first thing. But the best time ever to create a trigger point for a referral is when someone says, Cullen, that was awesome. And we got real value from that. That's a 9 or a 10 out of 10 service. That is the time to go, who else do you know who'd benefit from this type of thing? But if you don't have a client feedback system, you miss that opportunity, which is a huge miss with 90% of the lawyers here in Australia. So there's a quick takeaway, people. If you don't have that system in place, you really should, because that's when you're likely to. And then when you get the great feedback, that's when you can send them a link that says, if you go and press that link, it'll take you directly to Google. And you can, if you could copy and paste those kind words in there, that would be phenomenal. And the system kind of takes care of itself.
I'm endeared by what you're saying there as well. And what I would say is a little freebie for everyone. Here's the one thing that everyone has on them, their phone. The reason why we probably have so many Google reviews is because our clients love what we do, but also we send it to them in a text and say, when you have time, we'd love to hear from you. And because they've got it on their phone, they're more likely to do it. People send it in an email, and who looks at their email? Like, not every day, but everyone looks at their text and everyone has their phone on them. So little freebie for you, send your Google reviews via text, watch them soar. Now, hot tips.
Well, you asked me earlier, what do you do? And I'm not sure I probably answered that. I'd like to think I make the lives of lawyers and barristers easier.
Please.
Because I'll say to them, how much easier would your life be if you didn't have to worrying about where the next piece of work's coming from? And I could give you a roadmap to new instructions. So I guess that's kind of what I'm delivering. And given what we just described, I'm trying to get people to have systems, tools, and processes to produce the level of income that they require to live the lives that they want to. I guess that's where it sits. Because I appreciate that, financial reward isn't the reason why everyone goes to work, including lawyers. So, it depends what success looks like and what cup you would like on your mantelpiece.
No, absolutely. And I think Mina's resonating with what you're saying. He's saying fair, but I think it's 5%. So thank you, Mina. And everyone should be watching out for Mina, law firms and whatnot. Mina asks a lot of questions. That's the kind of person you want working for your firm, I'd say. So a bit of a shout out to Mina there. Anyone watching, what's some hot tips or the 3 biggest tips in BD? I won't use the dirty sales word, but BD in legal world that people can walk away with. 3.
Okay. First one is you have to have that ideal client profile. And the more narrow, whilst it goes against everything you've been taught, the narrower that field, and I want people to be a big fish in a smaller pond. So even like some law firms might come on and say, Alistair, we're really good in the manufacturing space. And I go, well, that's great, but do you manufacture watches, telephones, COVID masks? What is it? Right? There's about 100 different areas even within manufacturing. So be as narrow as you can and try and dominate. So I think that's where it starts. From that, try and think about this ecosystem, about who else can help you to open the doors, who else is valuable, who else can you collaborate with. Collaboration's a great thing. And for lawyers, lots of other referrals come from other lawyers who don't compete in your field. So there's a number of things in that. The third thing really is consistency. Show up. It's better to be consistently good than occasionally outstanding. Right? So some people, you know, if I just use my pen here, Exhibit A, Your Honour, you know, people tend to do very up and down BD efforts. If they're busy, they don't do any. When they've not, don't do anything, they do a bit. Right? So you end up with this up and down. What I'm trying to do is build an engine in the background that just works. So it takes a little bit of time to build some momentum at the start, but once you're going, things kick in. Once you've got, you know, I'm talking about putting 20 routes to market in place to generate inbound leads. That's a lot more. Most lawyers either rely on referrals, or in business to consumer law, many of them rely on Google AdWords, which are very expensive and historically produce less than ideal quality leads. So you need to be adding more strings to your bow, really, but consistently show up. Don't just do it once a month or once a week. You know, even LinkedIn, we touched on earlier. I went to a presentation on at LinkedIn head office here in Market Street in Sydney CBD, and they confessed the huge amount of traffic that goes through on Fridays. And I can just imagine the lawyers on the little mouse wheel, and they hit the billable hours target, and they go, right, I've now got time to play around with that LinkedIn thing. I'll go and have a go on a Friday afternoon. And it doesn't work.
Most people are tuned off on a Friday, Alistair. You're quite right.
You've got to show up regularly if you want to build a following. I think that's probably fair to say. So make sure you know who the client is, build an ecosystem around the client of other people, and consistently show up. So build a 2-hour window into your week. Probably not Mondays, probably not Fridays. Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday lunchtime, 2-hour window. That's when to hit all your BD to-do list. Tell your secretaries, your EAs, your other staff not to put client time into that 2-hour window. And people get more done in 3 months because they focused on it than they have done in the previous 3 years.
I love that. I think they're so valuable. Knowing who your client is, consistent background effort, and just basically do it. I think that's fantastic. Now, if anyone wants to utilize LinkedIn, the algorithm is doing some interesting things at the moment. I know you and I use LinkedIn quite a lot, Alistair. So here's some, I guess some feedback on the algorithm. It's loving videos under 60 seconds. It's loving text only. It likes one photo. Is in not a collage, just one photo, and it likes yes, no polls. What do you particularly like to use LinkedIn for in your content?
Well, it's interesting what you say, because I used to be a big sharer of things, but it's very noticeable that when I share things now, and you're shaking your head because you know already, the algorithm's really not impressed by that. So the other thing, whilst it goes against my grain a bit, is that the things that do best are the things with a personal edge. So
correct.
There's a big talk about, is LinkedIn becoming more like Facebook? And whilst I don't celebrate it, the answer is yes.
Yes, it is. Come on.
It's very clear that the stories with a personal touch do better than those that don't. So, for example, I always go out of my way on a Monday morning to post something that I give some serious thought to. So I posted something about my wedding anniversary and how you can relate success in a personal relationship to a business one. Right? And it's had 3,000 views in the first 24 hours. And again, text only, no picture. So that's had 3,000 sets of eyeballs on it. I think the biggest one I ever had, which was more than 12,000 sets of eyeballs, was when I became an Australian citizen and posted something around that. So it's very clear. But as I say, there still needs to be a business message in the post somewhere.
Correct.
Otherwise, people will go, this isn't Facebook, I'm in the wrong place, I'm not engaging with Cullen or Alistair again.
No. I think what you're saying is quite right. The algorithm does love personal elements to it, but it also loves it when you put someone else above you. And what I mean by that is the algorithm knows when you put another person's name in the post. So I'll tell you this is straight from my sources at Microsoft. Please get a photo of your team. Please get a photo of your clients and actually put them on there with their permission and say, hey, all, just a shout out to such and such because they've done this great work and they do this great. And what that shows the algorithm is that you're not talking about yourself, you're talking about someone else. And not only does the algorithm love that, people like photos of people, and they like engaging where you're shouting out someone else or celebrating someone else. So to that point of business is personal, make it about another person as well, as just making it about yourself, which I think is important. But, when all is said and done in this sales arena, business arena, life arena, how would you like to be remembered, Alistair Marshall?
Well, right now, with the current audience, I'd like to be remembered as the person who taught me the skills on how to convert flat white meetings into billable instructions, because that's a skill set that most lawyers and barristers are not born with. And I spend an awful lot of my time now doing exactly that. And that's one of the things that people thank me for the most, which is very rewarding. So, this morning I was out for a meeting at 10 o'clock in Pitt Street having coffee. There were other people in there. Many of them could have been legal fraternity. And as a result, not that much happened because they've never been taught how to hold that conversation. So they go back to the office and they tell the BD director, I've had my meeting with so-and-so today, ticking a box, everything's valid, but not a great deal happens as a result or follow up. So I guess in the first instance, I'd like to think I'm making the lives of these legal people easier.
I love that. I love that. And another tip on top of that, have an outside coffee where people can see you. And I know you and I love Bean Bar.
We have been photo bombed or I was going to say photoshopped. That's not what I meant at all. Maybe we need to be photoshopped. But yes, we have been spotted on occasion having flat whites out on the street. Doesn't do us any harm, I don't think.
Absolutely. See and be seen. Where can people find you? Where are you hanging out most, Alistair? Where can people get in touch?
Well, clearly LinkedIn's a good place to start. So Alistair Marshall on LinkedIn. There is another Scottish man who has my name and shares the same spelling, but I would hope certainly here in Australia I might be nearer the top of the rack. Otherwise, go to the website professionalservicesbd.com.au and please engage lots of the content there, all sorts of things, written videos, all sorts that can help people hopefully achieve the goals.
Wonderful. And it's been an absolute pleasure having you on the show. Thank you so much, Alistair. We'll bring you back after this for some bonus questions, but you are a true powerhouse, sir. And thank you again.
Bless you.
And that is the end of our Law Live for today. Hope you enjoyed it. We come out every Wednesdays, and we'll upload this to the podcast and it'll be available wherever you get them. Bye for now, everyone. Thanks so much. Bringing you back, Alistair. First bonus question, which I think you'll love, mate. How do you explain your role to a 6-year-old?
I make the lives of lawyers easily by enabling them to onboard new clients and win more business. Now, that's quite wordy. Let's think about that. There's two things when you're explaining what you do. You might have what I call a barbecue pitch. Okay, so it's not too set. It depends what scene you're in. But I help lawyers who want to grow a practice how to win new clients. I wouldn't say that to a 6-year-old, but I certainly would say it to a lawyer over a snag at a barbie. Sometimes people want to get a little bit more complex, at which point you might say, I always say to people, I'll give you some sentences, you fill in the blanks. So we work with blanks who have a problem with blank. What we do is blank, which means that blank, unlike other lawyers, blank, right? So it forces you to describe who you work with, what you do, what the result is of what you do, why you might be different to the competition. And people use that. And you can use that on LinkedIn, you can use that on homepages of websites. But if you follow that kind of methodology, you probably do better than 95% of lawyers in Australia who just couldn't say, I'm a lawyer, or I'm a family lawyer, or a tax lawyer.
No, I love that. It's actually just spelling out what you do. I think one of the most successful picture books or like books in general in like the photography section is How to Take Great Photos. And that was the title of the book. And it sold millions just because it said, I'm a book that will tell you how to take great photos. I'm a lawyer that can help. Yeah.
You and I have both been to a number of networking events in this space. You might go to the Law Awards or something like that, and you're at the bar and you go, hello, what do you do? And after 10 minutes, someone's still talking and you've still got no idea what they do.
No, exactly.
And people just need to know what you do, who you do it for, what the result is of what you do. That's it.
No, correct. And the last question, being a physics major, UNSW, shout out to them. When all is said and done and we look at your life, when would you like to go back in time and give yourself advice? And what advice would that be? How old would you be? And what would the advice be if you were to go back in time?
Okay, you're going to love this because it has a relevance to your world. So I'm very fortunate. So 2 pieces of advice. The first one is choose your partner wisely. So I waited a bit later in my life before I chose my life partner, but I absolutely chose the right one. And it's such a significant thing in your life. If you do that badly, apologize. It makes some work for our family lawyers on the call, but it's not something I advise. So take your time there. But without doubt, I only have 2 regrets in my life, and they're both property based. I didn't buy my parents' house when they sold it, and I should have done. And then when I moved here to Australia 9 years ago, I should have bought somewhere straight away, and I didn't. And so both of those things are property, but in fairness, they're both financial ones, right? Okay, so
correct.
You know, my life's still a good one because I chose the right life partner. But from a financial and things perspective, I definitely should have considered buying a property earlier.
Well, case in point, we've got Jonathan Sermon who says, great show this week. Alistair Marshall is the go-to for legal professionals. And in point of fact, this wasn't deliberate, but Jonathan Sermon is a buyer's agent. So there you go. You can talk to John Sermon there, Alistair. So that's good. But I think there's some cogent insights, and anyone tuning in, and we've had a few, are going to get a lot of value from this, especially when we upload it to the podcast. So thank you again there, Alistair.
Very welcome. Enjoyed it as ever.
Have a great day, everyone. And tell us. Well, you're about to say something else to come on.
I need to shout out and say hello to Jonathan.
Oh, well, let's again shout out to you, Jonathan, and thank you for commenting, my friend. Guys, have a great Wednesday. Make it count, and we'll see you again next Wednesday. All the best.